We are jumping into Chapter 13, Section C today, which talks about sonic technology, sound tech. There are some really cool things out there in the world that they use sound technology for, and we're going to look at a couple of them today. So this was very fun to write, and I hope it is very fun for you to hear. The picture is from an old movie that was out when I was a kid. This is Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, about to strum his guitar in front of the world's biggest amplifier.
But
and,
isn't it the date, like, wasn't there a recent date that they jumped back to the future?
The future was last October, yeah. Yeah, we are now more in the future than Back to the Future was supposed to be. It's very funny.
And they said there would be like hoverboards.
And flying cars.
Yeah.
And
Did that movie come out?
so, I don't know. Is there another Back to the Future?
Yeah, there's a new
Of course
one.
they are. They're out of ideas. So anyway, here we go. Sound amplification. So obviously this is not new tech, but talking about technology, about sound amplification, the earliest efforts to make sound larger or louder was architecture, where they would build amphitheaters, they would build the shape of buildings to amplify noise. So has anybody ever been to somewhere where you could see an old Greek-style amphitheater? Yeah, where'd you go? Okay, yeah, so they had some there. You can stand on the stage in the middle of the platform and talk at a maybe slightly elevated volume, but not like you're screaming. And people all over the place can hear you because of the shape of the room. It is meant to focus and magnify sound. Amphitheaters did it with the shape of the seating. We have here the Waikiki shell out in our island, right? The Waikiki shell is built to magnify sound. Today, it has speakers on it, but it didn't used to. It was originally just a building that amplified your sound. And it still does that, but now we have sound systems on it too. The Honolulu Bowl, not Honolulu, the Hollywood Bowl is another similar building that's built to amplify sound. The Sydney Opera House, very famous building, which you've probably seen pictures of. The reason it's shaped the way that it is to amplify sound. So the idea is that if you make a building focus the sound on the audience, then the performers don't have to scream and everybody can hear. More recently, of course, we have microphones and amplifiers and speakers and all that kind of stuff. And that's only since about the 50s that technology has existed. So not quite 100 years yet, where somebody has been able to talk into a microphone and this device plugged into the wall makes their noise louder. That's not a 100-year-old technology yet. So microphones and amplifiers and speakers are fairly new technology. And then very recently, we have wireless microphones and wireless speakers and wireless, guitar pickups and things of that nature. That's all really new. That's within my lifetime. I remember the first handheld cordless mics. It was kind of a joke because the sound quality was so bad and there was so much interference. When I was getting into the music industry and thought that's where I was going to go, it used to be, oh, please don't use a wireless mic on me because I don't want to sound stupid. Wireless mics were terrible quality. But today, everybody uses wireless mics and its sound quality is very good. And that's kind of the merger of radio technology with sound amplification. So sound amplification has always been a question. Recently, we've got some cool tech to help make that happen. You guys are being raised in that time. Wireless headphones are nothing to you. Wireless headphones are some newfangled thing for people of my generation, right? So this technology is growing. But this isn't the most exciting kind of technology out there. This is the Hollywood Bowl, and this is a building, and the building is parabolic in the back. It shrinks down. And so if you make noise in the center, the sound is reflected by the building out at the audience. And so you don't need a PA system for people to hear you. But of course, people don't want to just hear you, people want to experience it. So nowadays, there's all these speakers everywhere. But when the Hollywood Bowl was first built, it didn't have sound amplification, it didn't need sound amplification. It was built so that you could sit there in the middle of the stage and sing, and all of these hundreds or thousands of people out in front could hear you sing. The building was your PA system. We have the similar thing here at the Waikiki Shell, right? There's our version of it.
That's like because of that.
Yeah, and it's the same idea. It's a parabolic building, and so if you stand at the focus of the parabola and make noise, that sound is reflected all over the place, and everybody can hear you. But today we still have speakers because we want to be louder than that. But the building will do it on its own. Okay. Sound synthesizing is a new technology. Only since about the late 70s, early 80s, where you could have a computer make noise. And a computer that can replicate sounds of instruments or other natural sources. So the old synthesizers in the 80s and electronic music kind of exploded when people started making a computer that could play notes and a computer that could sound like a piano, or a computer that could sound like a violin. And of course, early on, they totally didn't sound like a violin or a piano. My first keyboard had a button that said piano. You push the piano, and what you played sounded like a synthesizer, not a piano. But today, we have really high quality, fast processing computers that make beautiful music. And if you close your eyes, you cannot tell the difference between a actual stringed piano and a synthesizer that has a good piano sample on it, or a violin and a piano, or and a keyboard that has a good violin sample. So that quality of computing has gotten bigger, but this is a computer that pretends that it's an instrument, makes the noise like an instrument. Or other natural things. You can sample whatever you want to. You can sample the sound of a dog barking and assign that to a pitch and make a keyboard play a song in dog barks. And so these computers are very cool, but that is a new technology. I try to imagine what would have happened if Brahms or Beethoven or some of these old classic composers, if they'd seen a modern synthesizer do its thing and played their music with only one instrument, and it's able to produce all of the sounds of an orchestra. It's just crazy what we can do today. Then going outside of music, we've had other advances in sound technology, including sonar and echolocation. And this is cool. Where did we get the idea for this? Where did submarines? Yeah, bats and dolphins are the natural source for this. So there's a burst of sound, and a computer nowadays, originally a bat or a dolphin, and they still do it, but a dolphin makes a click, and that sound goes out from the dolphin and bounces off of objects in the dolphin's environment, and the sound waves come back, and the dolphin has good enough hearing that it can determine where the sound comes back to it first, and know that something over there is closer to me than something over here. It can time the difference between the echoes and know where objects are. And not only that, but it can tell the shape of objects by the shape of the reflection. Our brains aren't wired this way, and we are hopeless if you try that. Like if you close your eyes and make a noise and then try to determine what your environment looks like because of that noise, you're dead in the water. You know, if I'm walking around and I'm like, okay, where's the music stand? I have no idea that there's a music stand here. My brain is completely incapable of doing that. But a dolphin makes a click and hears the echo and can turn the echo into images in its mind of where things are. Do you guys remember the dolphin field trip? They blindfolded the dolphin, and they made the dolphin go get objects off the bottom of the pond that were different shapes. A round thing, a square thing, a triangular thing, and it knew where that shaped thing was when it couldn't see. Strange, because it's able to echolocate and it knows the shape of the echo when it comes back. God is just incredible. Praise the Lord for dolphins and echolocation. Now, we've been able to figure out how to do that with computers, and our submarines are kept safe because they can ping and listen to the echo and figure out what's around them and not hit another object, right? But we stole that from God. That's God's technology that we've stolen. Also, the toothed whales, all the toothed whales, not just dolphins, can do this. And the sperm whale is especially awesome at these pings of sound energy. As a matter of fact, a sperm whale can kill with sound. A sperm whale can see an object in front of it and create such an intense burst of sound energy that it scrambles the brain of the object in front of it. So the sperm whale's primary prey, what it eats more than anything else, is giant squid. Giant squid are significant animals if you're going to try to fight one. They have huge, sharp beaks. They can inflict major wounds. They've got strong suction cups that actually have little claws in the middle, and they could do damage. If a sperm whale were to try to take a bite of a living giant squid, it would get hurt. So instead, what the sperm whale does is it uses its sonar location to find a giant squid, and then it swims up on the giant squid and does what's called a shotgun, where it creates such an intense burst of sound that the brain of the squid is flattened.
Like what?
Yeah, boom, and the squid is dead, and then it swims up and eats a dead squid. It's pretty awesome. I heard a story of a guy who I know as a friend of a friend of a friend. He's not my friend. Friend of a friend guy who was swimming, videotaping sperm whale, and the sperm whale got annoyed by his presence, and the sperm whale dove, and he's like, okay, well, he's going to be down for a while. So the guy, the camera is still on, but he's swimming back to the boat because the sperm whale went down. It's going to be a while. He's giving up. The shoot's over. But the sperm whale had gone down and had turned around and came up underneath him. And when he was only about 3 feet underwater, because he's surfacing, going back to the boat, the sperm whale shotguns him. And he was underneath just a little bit of water. So the force of the energy blew him out of the water as opposed to killing him. If he had been under enough water that he couldn't have just reacted to it, he would have potentially been killed by the sound. But the videotape is hilarious because he's surfacing. No, it used to be on YouTube, but I can't find it anymore. He's surfacing and it's slowly going up, and then all of a sudden daylight, and then splash, and then all kinds of scrambling like as he's getting on the boat. So because he was surfacing and he was shot out of the water, and then he landed and he's like, oh my gosh, and he's going and he gets back on the boat. So yeah, to be able to kill with sound is God's design. We are figuring this out too. Infrasonic waves, this is new technology. Waves that are too low to hear, but they can carry a lot of energy. You feel these waves. You don't hear these waves. Your ear can't pick it up. It's too low frequency. But you can feel this, and it's often very damaging. Infrasonic waves happen in earthquakes. That's why certain animals can tell that an earthquake is happening before it happens, because they can hear that infrasonic wave, and then they start to freak out, and then an earthquake comes. Volcanoes, when they erupt, create infrasonic waves. Same thing, animals can respond to infrasonic waves of volcanic eruptions before the eruption happens. Birds will often be seen flying off of the volcano before it erupts. Elephants can create them, and so can cats. Elephants and cats can create infrasonic waves, and they can use them to communicate over long distances. Part of the reason why God gave elephants really, really big feet is not just because they're really heavy and they need to be supported. That's true. But it's so that they can hear with their feet. They also have really big ears. And it's not just to vent thermal energy, which it's that too, but so they can hear very, very, very low frequencies. An elephant can can bellow at a very low frequency that you and I can't hear. We would never know that the elephant is making this noise. But elephants miles away feel the vibration in the earth with their feet and hear it with their massive ears. And they can coordinate movements and come together, bring the herd closer together, or claim territory over huge distances by these very, very low frequency infrasonic waves. Cats, the same thing. Part of the reason a cat purrs, you and I hear the purr, but we're hearing just the top part of the music that it's making. When it's purring, it's actually creating infrasonic noise. You and I can't hear it, but we can feel it. If you've ever held a cat, I don't know why you would, but if you've ever held a cat and you're petting the cat, I'm just kidding, cats have one or two good qualities. But if you've ever held a cat and pet a cat and it's purring, you can feel the percussion of the sound more than you can hear it, right? And what you hear is just the top part of the music and is what your ear can pick up. But there's a lot more noise being made by that cat as you're petting the cat. And lions and wild great cats, tigers and things of that nature, purr, and they do that as a form of communication, again, over long distances. A tiger's purr can be felt in the ground by another tiger miles away. And so it's a form of communication. Today, we use it artificially as well, but again, elephants, big feet and big ears, so that it can hear these very low frequency sounds from miles and miles and miles away. And then cats purring.
Oh, I mean,
Yes, cats purring are communicating with one another.
They're like
They are tigers.
tigers.
Yes.
No, it's a lion.
Yeah, and then earthquakes create these very low frequency sounds as well. So we have figured out that we can use VLF, very low frequency sound, to communicate as well. We can put VLF receivers around to monitor earthquakes and even to detect nuclear bomb blasts. So that's part of our national defense, is to have VLF receivers in around the world, especially around our allies and our nations and our targets. And if a serious bomb goes off, then we will be able to pick that up from a long ways away. Also, they're using VLF receivers now in major cities. New York and Chicago have VLF receivers around the city, so that if a suicide bomber were to go off, we don't have to wait for somebody to call the police. Bomb detection units around the city would be immediately alerted to an explosion.
Where is this?
In big cities. Chicago and New York admit that they have them. I bet other cities do, but they're keeping it quiet. But just VLF receivers that will respond when VLF energy is released, probably because of a bomb. And we can also weaponize VLF energy, very low frequency energy. You can be hit with very low frequency sound and you get dizzy, you get nauseous, you can lose your vision from very low frequency sound, and you can't hear it, but all of a sudden you pass out. All of a sudden you can't see. Certain frequencies of it cause incontinence, cause you to pee and poop yourself, which is a wonderful non-lethal weapon. Could you imagine you've got an angry mob storming your headquarters, your embassy, and you don't want to shoot these people because they're citizens of a friendly nation, but they're angry at you, and you want to defend your embassy, so you create this note that goes out into the crowd, and all of a sudden everybody poops themselves. They are going to stop thinking about storming your embassy, and they're all going to go try to find toilet paper and change their pants, because nobody likes wearing poop, right? So it's an awesome non-lethal weapon to disperse crowds and things of that nature.
Is there a video on that?
Like the new technology to get rid of prostitutes. Ew, why would you?
Yeah. There is. You can search for what's called the brown note.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it.
The brown note is what it's called.
The brown one.
Mythbusters even did an episode on the brown note, and they didn't wind up pooping themselves then, but about 20 minutes after the experiment, they were all having trouble. So it didn't happen immediately, and they're like, "Oh no, this myth is busted," and then they did a little, "Oh, just kidding." It just took a little bit. So the very low frequency energy can do that. There's even something. This is a huge, very low frequency antenna array, and there are some people who say that that this antenna array up in Alaska is able to create weather by focusing sound energy into the upper atmosphere. It's contested. The government denies it, but just because the government denies it doesn't mean I don't think it might be true. But some people say that this antenna array can create storms, and they're experimenting with being able to create storms over the enemy, which would be an interesting complication of warfare. This is a very low frequency antenna that is meant to pick up nuclear blasts from a long ways away. And we use it not because we don't know if we've been hit by a bomb, but to test things like rogue nations that are doing bomb testing and things like that. Yeah. This is a very low frequency emitter on the top of a police truck. And so this is these are police in riot gear. They're going to go try to break up a mob. And they're not going to shoot them, but they will make them all nauseous by flooding them with very low frequency noise and make people either throw up or want to go throw up, or poop themselves, which will make them run away. Yeah. So this is America. This is Allegheny County, New York. So this is us using this technology on our people.
What about the people?
It's focused out the front. So as long as you stay behind the truck, you're okay.
That'll be funny just shooting all these people with it.
Yeah. And they'll be fine once they,
They're all.
yeah. Yeah. This is a very low frequency antenna array that is actually in Hawaii. This is a Google Earth image that I took, and this is right here on Oahu. And this very low frequency antenna is used to communicate with submarines because the energy is so intense and so low frequency that it travels through water really well. And a submarine a long ways away will pick up our signal, and we can communicate instructions to the sub without it having to surface and use a regular wire antenna. So this is right here. If you head north on H2 and you get off at Kauka,
I don't think we know that.
yeah, if you get off at Kauka, and instead of going left to where Costco is, you go right, and you take some forest roads, and you wind up at this facility.
That's why your house there, so.
So, yep.
Is that your house right there on the left?
Yeah, so, and this is another very low frequency antenna array. This one is in Alaska.
Alaska.
Yep. So, ultrasound, it's the opposite of infrasound, right? Ultrasound, too high to hear. It doesn't diffract or refract well. So, it doesn't bend and it doesn't bounce off of things really well. And so, it is good for imaging. We can make pictures with ultrasound. And this is part of what a dolphin does, part of what a bat does, but we're using it now medically, and so we can take medical pictures with sound technology, and this is the most common imaging done with pregnant people because we don't want to bombard babies with radiation to take an X-ray of them, but the baby is just fine if we bombard them with sound energy, and so we take sound pictures of babies with this technology. Yeah.
Is this so off topic? But do babies use the bathroom when there's laundry stuff, right?
Yes, yes. Not their bowels, so there's no poop, but amniotic fluid is baby pee.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Amniotic fluid is baby pee.
That's good too.
They get water from mom through the umbilical cord, and then they pee, and
Where did?
and it piles up, and that becomes the amniotic fluid. And then the placenta, one of the placenta's jobs is to filter waste out of the amniotic fluid, and then mom pees it out again. But the initial development, yeah, is baby pee. But thank you for that. You're right. That has nothing to do with anything we're talking about.
Is that like when like they break the water broke?
Yep, that's the water. Okay, ultrasound machines. Back to ultrasound. We shoot high energy sound at an object, and it'll go through soft things, but it bounces off of harder things, or it can bounce off of layers between tissues. So if one kind of tissue changes into another kind of tissue, at that threshold it'll bounce off. And so the computer listens to the echo and can interpret that echo as images and pictures. We can also use this to deter animals that can hear above the human range. So there are certain things you can plug into the wall and it's supposed to keep mice away. It makes a really high-pitched sound, and then the sound is uncomfortable to mice, and so the mice leave, is the theory. Doesn't always work. But something that's really amusing, you right now have a higher threshold of hearing than I do. As people age, they lose the top threshold of hearing. So you can hear a higher range than I can. What's ultrasound to me is regular hearing capability for you. And shortly after puberty, within 5 or 6 years after puberty, the threshold drops. So young adults don't hear the same band that pubescents or post-pubescents can hear. So there are devices now to keep teenagers away from certain places, because there are companies that don't want gangs, initially is what it was for, loitering around their store, because all these teenagers hanging around the back of their store, sells drugs, steal things, stuff like that. So they install these, and they're on motion detectors, and when somebody walks by, it makes this noise really loud and really annoying. And people who can hear it don't want to be there. They're like, oh gosh, what is that sound? And they leave. But the trash man, who has to go back behind your store and dump the trash, doesn't hear it. So he walks back, and he's just fine. And he's dumping the trash, he's doing his job, or your employees of your store, as long as they're, you know, over the age of like 22, 23, they don't hear it either, they're all fine. But then the gang of hoodlums shows up, and they're like, oh! It's really cool. Yeah.
The thing, because my parents, it used to be a bunch of stray cats by our house, and then my parents bought this ultrasonic thing, and then I don't think it was really ultrasonic because it was just really loud and annoying.
But you can hear it.
No, my parents. I think someone like came to our house, like my neighbor came and told us to turn it off because it was really loud.
So they had the ability to hear that range.
And then I also watched some videos because you know the ones that show how good your hearing is, and then I couldn't even hear the ones that was like above my 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wasn't the only one. I did it with a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, my hearing is going. But ultrasound technology we obviously use for imaging here. And then this is the motion detector noise emitter. And this one is actually sold online to deter mice and pests and things of that nature. But this one up on the, this one right here is meant to deter teenagers.
I can see that.
It's very funny. It's something that, you know.
Does it sound like a file alarm?
Yeah, it's that kind of really loud noise, but it's only the high ultrasound that a teenager can hear but an adult can't. And then this is, do I have time for this? I have